Good afternoon to everybody on the call, and welcome to the Trax8 Introduction webinar. We are very excited to share with you more information about nFocus Solutions' next generation TraxSolutions suite. During the webinar, you will learn how Trax8 includes new features such as a better user interface and improved navigation, integrated dashboards, and advanced survey and outcome measurement functionality, all of which make it easier than ever to prove that what you do is having a positive impact on those you serve. Before we begin, let's start with a few introductions. My name is Jenny Autumn, and I am nFocus's Marketing Manager. I'll briefly go through the webinar agenda, and we'll give you an overview and synopsis of our goals for the Trax8 launch. During this webinar, you will also hear from Don Pruitt, our Executive Vice President, who will go through the Trax8 functionality enhancements and will give the product demonstration. Daniel Adam, our Director of Client Engagement, will then talk more about next steps and the migration process. Here are just a few housekeeping items to know before today's webinar. This is a live demonstration of some of the key features available in Trax8. Since we have a lot to cover today in 1 hour and there are a lot of people on today's call, we will not be taking questions from the audience. Instead, we ask that you please email your questions to info@nfocus.com, and someone will respond to you shortly. The recording of this webinar will be made available to you soon, and more information about the recording as well as updates to Trax8 will be shared with you via email, so please keep an eye out for those updates. As noted before, we have a lot to cover during today's webinar. I will start with a quick overview of Trax8, and we'll talk more about what our goals were for the project. Don Pruitt will go through the major functional enhancements and new capabilities. He will also provide you with the Trax8 demonstration. Daniel Adam will discuss the implementation process and next steps to roll Trax8 out to existing clients. After that, we will conclude today's webinar. Before I turn the presentation over to Don, we want to take a moment to explain our goals in developing this new version of TraxSolutions. nFocus prides itself on being on the cutting edge of technology in order to make your daily life easier. Our success is firmly rooted in our client success. Giving you software solutions that allow you to continue to make a difference in the communities you serve is of utmost importance. Therefore, we have been listening to you and have taken careful note of the upgrades and enhancements that you have requested in the next version of TraxSolutions. Trax8 is the result of this effort. It is a foundational rewrite of the entire application. Part of that effort, we have improved the user interface to make it more usable. We changed the application architecture to make it more secure and more responsive. And we updated the data structure to better track the critical information you collect regarding your participants, programs, and organizations. We added many new features to help individual organizations and users, and have also revamped our approach to supporting communities and larger organizations. Finally, we made improvements to the software that will significantly enhance our ability to support you and your staff members to ensure you get the most out of your software investment. Whether it's through improved surveys, better outcome measurement tools, or a more intuitive user interface, we think the improvements we are making will help you become more effective and efficient in your job. Since introducing Trax8, we have received some questions about costs surrounding the upgrade. Before we move on, we want to emphasize that every enhancement shared with you today is covered in the cost of your annual maintenance and support agreement with nFocus. With that background, I'd like to ask Don Pruitt to provide you with an overview of the new Trax8 upgrades and capabilities, as well as a demonstration of these new features.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you all for joining us today. We released our first software application, which many of you knew as KidTrax, almost 2 decades ago. Since then, we've continued to update and upgrade our offering by adding additional products and modules and by moving the application to the web. This year marks the release of our most advanced solution yet, and it is my distinct pleasure to present the results of our efforts over the last 2 years. Before we start the actual demonstration, I want to explain a few of the major enhancements that we have made to TraxSolutions. The first is custom data. This enables you to customize your application by adding additional fields and tables to the system. This is a significant improvement over the user-defined codes we offer in the current version, as it lets you create many different types of fields, as well as enabling long-term tracking of data fields without overriding your previous entries. We've also added configurable forms. The fields you can add can actually be added to other areas within the application beyond the UDC tab. You can now create multiple tabs for participants, organizations and sites, and programs. Each tab can have multiple tables with multiple columns. There's virtually no end to the data that you can add to the system. Many of you have requested, and particularly those within our community deployments, have requested an identity management feature. Identity management has become increasingly important over the last 2 years. What is it? Simply put, it is the ability to identify the same individual across multiple sites, programs, and/or organizations. This eliminates duplicate data entry and duplication in reports. We've added integrated dashboards. What good is data if you can't view it in a usable manner? Our integrated dashboards enable you and your users to create customized individual dashboards that meet your specific needs. Dashboards include information regarding attendance, enrollments, outcomes, cases, programs, and finances. Additionally, we've made a really big improvement in terms of the workflow of how your users will actually add people into the system and edit their information via custom data entry forms. Custom data entry forms enable your organization to use different forms for different purposes. For example, you may have one form enrolling participants into a soccer league and another form that collects more information for a tutoring program or for case management. You can control what data is collected on which forms, what is required, and where the form takes the user after they submit the information. This is a huge difference from the current version, where essentially you have one data entry form for participants regardless of which activity or program they're enrolling. We've also added a user-selected start page. Because different users have different needs, we enable them to select their own page from which they'll start their application every time they log in. This will decrease the number of clicks it takes for users to get to their most commonly used functions. We've also added custom quick links, much like the user-selected start page. So after a user logs in, they can navigate through the application using our standard menu-based navigation, or they can create a set of custom quick links to access their most commonly used features. We're very proud to announce as well the integration of the Search Institute's developmental asset profile. The Search Institute helps people understand what kids need to succeed and to take action based on that knowledge. We have integrated the developmental asset profile into TraxSolutions using our new survey management tool, which we'll demonstrate to you today. We've also put a lot of work into improving our data displays. We want to make sure users can use the application for more than just data entry and data management. So our new displays focus on helping users to understand the data they are collecting in order to be more effective. We've completely changed our ad hoc reports. Every user's reporting needs differ somewhat, so we recreated our ad hoc reporting tool, which many of you know as Dart.net, to be easier to use and more powerful. We've also done a lot of work on improving the integration with outcome measurements. From integrated logic models to individual outcome dashboards, we've significantly improved the tools we offer to help you track, measure, and analyze your outcomes. We've also, as I mentioned about the developmental asset profile, we've also improved the surveys to include things like multi-language support, conditional branching, the ability to use video and audio files to support your surveys, the ability to customize the look and feel of surveys, and a much tighter integration with metrics and outcomes to help you better measure the impact your programs and services are having on the people you serve. And finally, we have a need-to-know mapping. For those organizations that need to meet FERPA requirements, we now provide a capability to limit access to individual participant records to only those users who have a designated need-to-know. I'll explain that a little bit more as I talk through the hierarchies that we've implemented in Trax8. We've implemented a new hierarchical data structure that supports both organizations with multiple sites as well as communities with multiple organizations. For organizations with multiple sites, the new structure enables you to centralize your records in order to eliminate duplicate data. You can still retain autonomy across sites, but the data can easily be rolled up to the organizational level without duplicating data. In community deployments, we can support multiple organizations with multiple child sites. All data will be protected so other organizations can't see or access your data, but the data flows all the way to the community level. This will make it much easier to integrate with Community Server, our data warehouse application, and much easier to retrieve aggregate, unduplicated data across an entire community. As I mentioned in the last part of the features, I want to take just a second to talk a little bit about the need to know. The need to know enables organizations to assign users to one or more participants in a manner that allows you to stay in with FERPA and other regulatory requirements. If you choose to implement this, your organization or your community can then force users to have an actual designated need to know and therefore access to each individual participant's records. For those organizations or communities that don't wish to implement this, you just operate the same way that you do today, where users can access information across all participants within your organization. So now let's take a few minutes to actually walk through the Trax8, and I'll give you a demonstration of the high points of the capabilities I just covered. So I'm going to start with the login. And again, I'm not going to cover everything that we've got within all of the systems because there's a lot of capabilities that we've added. But I want to hit the high points. So the first part is you'll notice a completely different home page. Now this is our default home page, but as I mentioned, and as I'll show you in a few minutes in the demonstration, every user can change their default start page for the application so that you're not always going to the home page. You may want to go directly to your dashboards or directly to participant management. I'm going to start with the participant management because I think I can highlight a number of the different improvements that we've made to this application from within this. The first thing you'll notice is this landing page. Now we call these module pages landing pages, and essentially what it does is it gives you the access to some information as well as access to data for whatever we're managing, in this case participants, and then the access to manage that data via a number of different actions that you'll find at the bottom of the screen. At the top, you'll also notice that we're already starting to summarize data about your participants. For the demonstration purposes, I have a test database that we've loaded over 30,000 people in with both active and inactive participants and over 3,000 active participants. You can search through the participants and perform batch actions against the results just like you can in the current version, but I'd like to come out and focus a little bit on the participant detail to show you some of the improvements that we've made here. So the first thing you'll notice is we still maintain the basic data about that participant at the top of the page, and I'll cover some of these other things in just a minute in terms of community report and the different forms that you can use to edit this person's information. But I'll start out by just highlighting the first thing. As I mentioned, we want to make sure that we're providing information up front that enables you to look at and understand everything you need to know about every participant you're serving. So the first thing you'll see is we give you some attendance summary data, both in terms of attendance and time, and you can actually set goals for their engagement levels for participants. In this case, I've set goals for average weekly attendance, and I can immediately see that Hannah is in the middle tier of her attendance, below her goal that I've set for attendance, and I can see that her long-term trend is decreasing. She's attending less per week over the course of the last year every month that we have her coming into the system, into our organization. And I can see that very quickly by looking at my attendance summary. Starting back in March of 2012, her attendance started to increase, leveled off, and then started coming back down as we approached March. So I'm already getting some information about Hannah just in terms of her attendance patterns from just this initial first screen. We've also made some changes by collapsing some of the tabs that you're used to in the current member manager. So in our participant management details screen now, if I go to the enrollment history, I get all of her membership or participant enrollments over time, along with some additional data. The total attendance days she's had, the total attendance hours for each of those memberships, and then I can scroll down and see every activity enrollment she's had. Again, if I'm tracking time and attendance for those activities, I get that data here as well. So I not only understand where she's enrolled, I can find out how many days she was enrolled in every particular activity, and how many of those days she attended in total hours from that time period, all from within one screen. You'll also notice that we've changed the way that we display a lot of our data in the tables. So you can control the number of items that are displayed per page. You can page through them. And we're using a technology called Ajax that allows us to refresh data without sending a lot of data back and forth to the server. So you should see some fairly significant performance improvements, even those organizations and communities that have lots of participants. And again, I'm working with over 30,000 records for this demonstration. We've also consolidated data on our academic tab that enable you to get in and access information about their particular academic records. This can include school records, so we can track every school year along with their grade level, their student ID, the number of days they were absent, even into metrics such as GPA and course grades, as well as standardized tests. Now you'll notice down here I have a table called school permissions. I want you to remember that as I get into the dynamic data portion of this demonstration, because this is data that you can add. We added this strictly for the demonstration. It wasn't added by programmers. It was added by us as we were getting ready to present this demonstration. And I'll show you that as we get into the dynamic data. But this shows you how you can add additional data to the tabs that we already have for you to customize what it is that you're going to track and how you're going to track it in terms of the data fields. We've made another change and added a new capability which enables you to actually go through and track if you have the information about a participant either from their Facebook account or for Twitter. We can actually follow them and bring that information directly into the participant management system. What this will enable you to do is do some analysis by looking at maybe what they're tweeting, what are they saying out on Facebook, and how is that affecting their attendance patterns. Is there something going on in their life that you want to be able to investigate or look, or that informs you about their attendance if it's dropping off or if it's increasing? Now we just use the standard APIs provided by Facebook or by Twitter, so we're not doing anything that's outside of the norm for these systems, but it does provide us more information about that participant. Additionally, over the coming months and years, we're going to be doing a lot more on social media, such as collecting this information and trying to aggregate it and analyze it across all of your participants who might have Twitter accounts, so that we can try to trend those comments and see what that's telling us about the environment that they live in, that they go to school in, and that they go to after-school programs in. Last thing I want to highlight on the participant management area, and I mentioned it briefly on the academic tab, are these additional tabs down here. And we just created a couple of tabs called Pets and called Permissions. Now, Pets is not something that you're going to see out of the box from our participant management system, but it's something that, getting ready for this demonstration, we said, okay, we need to be able to track their pets. What are their names and what type of pet do they have? And then we also added things like discharge data and even demo for these tables. I'm going to show you that as we move into how you can configure the application to support more of your data needs. So as we've improved the look and feel of the application, as we've consolidated tabs and make it easier for your users to get in and use the system, we also wanted to make it very customizable in terms of how can we expand it to meet more of your data needs. So we call that dynamic data. What dynamic data lets us do is look through here and say, there's a pets and then permissions that you saw for the participant, and that's where we actually add tabs to that particular interface. So for on our participant detail, we said that we want to add tabs. Now those are inheritable. So if you have child organizations, you can create tabs, add tables and columns, and those are immediately available for all of your child organizations to collect that data. If child organizations add those tabs, those are only available to them and their children, not across peers. So you can feel very comfortable that the data is going to be secured as you collect it. We can also add tabs or add tables to tabs that already exist within our system. So there's the academic data tab that I showed you earlier, and if I click on data sets, you're going to see there's the school permissions data set that I'd already created. I'm going to go back to dynamic data, and I'm going to work on this on that permissions tab. So as I click on the permissions tab here, because that's a custom tab that's just for this organization that they created, I had two tables, one for permissions and one that we called demo table. So I want to add something here under this particular tab. So I'm going to add a new data set or a new table, and I'm going to call this housing locations. I can put a description in there or not, and now as I do that I can add different columns. So what you're literally able to do is come in here and create your own data tables that will automatically create the data forms for you as well. You let your screen catch up. So I can go through here and now add columns to these databases, or to these tables. I'm going to add one called area that I'm going to make as a drop-down list or a pick list. And you'll see on the right-hand side I get a look at what that editor is going to look like. So that housing, we'll call that housing area. And we're going to call that, the first one, Brooks housing area. And we'll call the other one East Side. And you'll see now that's what that drop-down is going to look like. So I can save this. I can make them required, and I can add additional attributes about that. But I'm going to add another one that just says, and call this one effective date. And I'm going to make that one a date time. So I've added 2 fields to it. So now I can go back into that participant management system, or into the detail. And as I go back into that person's record, and I go to her permissions tab, you're going to see the table with housing locations, and it automatically creates the data entry form for me, so I can choose which housing area and what the effective date is for that. And I can save that. So without any programming, without calling tech support, without doing anything, your users with designated permissions can go in and completely customize the database to make sure that we can track all the information that you require. And again, that's inheritable. So that means that you can create that at the community level or at the parent organization level and make that available to the organizations below you. Not only do we do that, but we can also allow you to create custom data entry forms. So some of the feedback that we've gotten from you over the years is a little bit of inflexibility from us when it comes to entering data. So you have one membership form or participant form that has to be entered regardless of what activity you're bringing somebody into. So as I mentioned in the introduction, you may have an athletic program that you need some data for, but not an extensive amount of data. And you may have a tutoring program or case management that you need additional data brought in. So we've actually enabled you to go in and create separate data entry forms for those needs. So I can come in here and I can go into Manage Data Entry Forms, and you notice I can create participant forms or household forms, and I've got a number that I've already created here. So I'm going to start with looking at the standard enrollment form, and as I click Edit, I can come in here and I can configure which fields are going to be displayed on this particular form, which ones are required, and then I've got an option to set what that submission action is after I enter the form. So in this case, it's going to be participant detail. When I actually add this record now using this form, after I submit that data, it will take me to the participant detail record so I can use that, update information, add additional information, whatever I need to do. Conversely, I may create a form because I've got basketball enrollment that happens on Saturday morning, and I need to be able to add that very quickly. So I can create a separate form called basketball enrollments that has a different set of fields that I'm going to collect. Maybe it's less fields. Maybe it has to include some additional fields such as height or weight or something like that, or customized data. But the key here is I can set the submission action. So here I can say when I enter this data, automatically enroll them into a particular program or activity, and I can select that. So rather than having everybody come through, fill out the same form, go to the member manager, enroll them into a particular activity, and those additional tasks that you have to do now, all you have to do is enter their information, click the submit button, it adds the record and automatically enrolls them in that particular activity. And as you can see, there's other options I can have here. I can automatically send them to a case intake form, so the first form can collect their demographic information and household information, and then automatically take me to do my case intake. And I can take them to an activity enrollment form that allows me to search and enroll them in multiple activities the first time they come in. As we launch our referral management piece within TraxSolutions version 8, you'll also be able to add referrals as soon as you add this record. So for those of you that offer centralized referral programs, as soon as you add that information, it can redirect you to the referral form so you can refer them out to other organizations for additional programs and services. We found that we're able to really make the data entry process a lot smoother and less time-consuming by utilizing these capabilities. And that ultimately ends up in saving you both time and money because your staff spends less time doing data entry and more time actually working with kids. So I mentioned the identity management capabilities during our introduction. Part of that I can't really demonstrate because it's structural within the application, but I can explain it a little bit. As we add a new participant, for those of you that are in multi-level organizations, those participants, their person record gets added to the parent-level organization, but the enrollment records get added to the organization that's enrolling them. What this means is that the next time somebody shows up, it's like having a built-in master database. Instead of having to operate a second lookup database that has all of your participant information, it's built directly into the system. So when Johnny shows up at the West Side branch after he's been to the East Side branch, his data, his personal data is already available. We can say identify him within the system and then enroll him for activities and services within the West Side branch without it actually duplicating or overriding or sharing data with the East Side branch. But it automatically rolls up so that we know that Johnny's information is that he's attending two different branches or two different sites. Additionally, we've added something called a merge capability. So particularly for those organizations that are coming in from multi-hierarchies right now, and as we import your data, you have some duplicate data. So we want to provide you with a very easy way to go through and merge those records so that we can take those duplicate records and turn them into one. So I'm going to go through and just do a quick merge. I'm going to search for my active participants here just so I can return some records. And I'm going to go ahead and choose a couple of these people to merge. So what I'm going to be able to do here is I'll just go through and pick a couple of these individuals. And I'm going to be asked then to choose who's the primary record and who's the alternate record. And what we mean by that is to be able to go through and say which record is the one that has the data that you want to keep and the other one you want to select to bring data into. So I'm just going to select Joseph, and we're going to bring Israel's record into Joseph's record. If any of you have ever used like Ancestry.com or some of those family tree applications, we're following the same type of merge capability that they have there. Here's my primary record of what it's going to be. And as I look through this, I can say, oh, I want to bring over nickname, everything else stays the same here. Maybe the birth date is correct on the alternate record, and we want to keep the address. So I can choose what data I want to keep, and then I can go ahead and merge those records. I'll explain this in just a minute. I've merged the records, but I don't have access to actually view the details of this record because of our need to know. And I'll show you that in just a minute. But what we've now been able to do is take those two separate records that may have come from multiple sites that did duplicate data entry, or even within one site, and I've been able to merge those into one record. That brings over their case information, their enrollment information, their attendance information. All of that gets merged into one, so that you can feel very comfortable that when you're reporting your numbers at the end of the year, that you're reporting unduplicated counts no matter how many sites your organization actually supports. Since you've already gotten the warning message, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the need to know now instead of waiting for that later in the presentation. So as I mentioned, for organizations that want to implement it, we can implement a need to know, which basically forces you to go through and say, and designate which participants every user can access. So for example, if I come in here and look at my record, and I look at the details, not only can I be assigned to multiple organizations with different permissions for those organizations, but I also have these participant assignments. So these are the people that I actually have access to. I can go in and work with their data. I can look at their participant management data, and when I run reports, their data will appear on those reports. If I don't have explicit access to a participant, I can't access their information, and their information won't show up on reports for me either. Much like you just saw when I merged Israel and Joseph's records together. I didn't have access to either one of them, so I can't actually see the details of those records. I can manage it, I can merge it, but I can't get in and see things like academic data, their attendance data, case management information, anything like that. We also keep that record. So particularly for those of you that are working with school data, and we look at FERPA requirements, you oftentimes have a requirement to be able to go back historically and say, this particular staff member had access to this individual's record from this time to this time. So we store all of that for you. What that means is when I go into that participant management record, when I bring up Hannah's record, which you can see I have access to, I can see her detail just like I showed you earlier in the demonstration. I can bring up her detail record, I can view everything that I've got permissions to view, and I've got access to her information. If, however, I go back and I choose a record that I didn't have access to, pick one way down here that I probably don't have access to, you'll get that same warning message. I don't have access to this data, so I can't get to it. That's controlled by an administrator, that's controlled by your organization, and you've got complete control over that. Again, that's optional for those organizations that don't want to implement it. You don't have to. You can choose whether or not you want to implement that when we deploy this for you. I mentioned earlier that users have the ability to modify their information. So you'll notice here when I click on my username, I've got these quick links here that I can go to, so I can go directly to participant management for my quick links, and I can also manage those. So what I can do here is if I go to manage quick links, I can set up what capabilities within the system do I want to quickly be able to access. So you'll see here I've marked off that I want to be able to get to surveys, case management, participant management, and outcome measurement. And I've also designated the home page as my start page. But let's say I want to change that, and I want to make my home page or my start page my dashboards. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to log out and log back in. And now when I log in, I'm brought directly back to my personalized dashboard. I'll go through this in just a minute and show you the details of this. But I can control the workflow and where I go within the application by using my own personalized start page and my quick links. Last couple of things I want to cover. I want to make sure that you see the improvements that we've made to our ad hoc reporting tool, Dart.net. So we've added a capability now for you to create your own catalogs. For those of you familiar with Dart.net, our ad hoc reporting tool, we create the catalogs here at nFocus in the current version, and you can go through and filter those, but you can't create catalogs. We've changed that and given you the ability to create catalogs, and this goes for both the participant management system, across outcomes, finances, all of the different data sets or data that we have within the applications, including the new version of Community Server. What that ultimately means for this is that after I create those catalogs, I can go in and actually run reports from here. So I can view these reports, I can export these into Microsoft Excel, I can do my grouping and filtering by this, and I can also create custom reports. And there's no limit to the amount of data that you can export for this. You can literally export tens of thousands of records into Microsoft Excel or CSV files and use those in external systems. Filter this however you want, and can control how you want to get your data for specific reports that you want to run. That's in addition to the stock reports that we have within the system already. The last two areas I want to cover during the demonstration time today have to do with outcome measurement and then surveys. So we've made some changes to our outcome measurement toolkit. First, you'll notice that it's built within the application, so I don't have to log out of this or log into a different application in order to access my outcome measurement toolkit. Secondly, I can go through and I can manage my logic models. So if I want to go in and create a logic model for academic programs, I can. And you'll notice we've given you a lot more space to be able to go in and enter information about your inputs, your activities, and your outputs. What is it? You can do a much better job of describing that. We are still keeping the visual look of your logic model. So for those of you that like that graphical representation of your logic model, you will be able to see that as well. And then we made it a lot easier to manage the outcomes and how those link to it. So for this academic logic model that I've created, in addition to adding links and description for your users about what logic models are and what outcomes are all about, you also have the ability to manage a lot more in-depth information. So if I want to add additional outcomes to this particular logic model, I can just drag them over, and that's going to associate these outcomes with the logic model that I've actually created. And if I want to do the opposite and remove those and say, I no longer want this outcome or this outcome in my academic logic model, I just drag them back and remove them, and I'm all set. That manages those particular outcomes for me. So I can go through and create as many logic models as I want, and they're also inheritable. What that means is if you're a Boys and Girls Club in Chicago and you want to create a logic model for all of your sites to use, you can create it at the organizational level, and it's automatically available for the sites. If you're sitting in one of our community deployments in Grand Rapids or Omaha or Boston or any of our others, you can create logic models at the community level that are automatically inherited by all of the organizations that are involved in your collaboration. They can, those organizations can still create their own, but this enables you to automatically bring that data in, aggregate it, and look at it at the organization and community level. In addition, we've really expanded what we're doing with metrics. So as we add these metrics, you'll see I've got a number already added within this. And if I come in here and look at my reading grade, I can go through and show you how we can set these up. So we can still do custom pick lists, number values, survey questions, entire surveys to set all of these up. And then in addition, we've added some additional capabilities here. You can do scaling, you can do some rounding, and then you can use what we call interpretive ranges to set up what those values ought to be for your particular ranges. So if you create a metric, in this case a reading grade, and we're basing this, let's say on a 5-0 scale, or we want to change this to a 4-0 scale based on the data that we're entering here, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0, then I may want to say that an excellent value for this is anything from 3 to 4. Good values will be anywhere from 2.5 to 3. Fair values will be 2.0 to 2. I'm sorry, to 2.5. And then anything below 2.0 is considered red. That's going to configure how that data gets displayed on both aggregate dashboards and individual dashboards. We've also added the capability to add composite metrics, meaning you can create individual metrics for each of your for different areas. Like for example, when you saw my metrics, I had one for reading grade. You'll see these are actually from the Search Institute and from their developmental asset profiles. But I may have one for reading grade, science grade, weekly attendance. I may want to create a composite metric that enables me to pull all of those together into one academic metric. So I'm looking at, in addition to the individual metrics, one that calculates based on metrics that I've already added within the system. Now what does this look like? Well, in addition to reports and aggregate data and your dashboards, it also shows up for your individual participants. So I'm going to go back into our participant management in our detail and pull up an individual participant's record. Now I've already set up my metrics and I've already assigned outcomes to this individual. So in addition to those kind of outputs that we're measuring for attendance, if I go in and look at the dashboard, the first thing you're going to see is we're going to give your users some information about what outcomes are and how to use them. But more importantly, I can log in here and I can look directly at those outcomes that I've already set up and started collecting data on. I can see how this particular individual is doing for every individual metric, where they fall within that interpretive range from low to fair to good to excellent, what their trend is looking like, and then probably most importantly, where they fall within the quintile. They may be, in this example, fair in terms of our interpretive range from a normative standpoint, but within the population that we're serving, Hannah's actually in the second quintile of people that we're serving. So this gives us the context around the individuals that we're working with and where their particular metrics fall within the range of all of the individuals that we're serving, as well as within kind of the total population, or setting it up for the interpretive ranges that we've determined we want to measure our metrics by. Some of that outcome measurement is actually informed by surveys, and we've made some tremendous headway in our survey management tool. So first, you'll notice as I come in here, I can manage multiple surveys. I can use templates, and as I mentioned, this is the tool that we're actually using to deliver the Search's developmental asset profile through our system. So it's a very powerful system in terms of managing data and setting up metrics. I've created several different surveys here. So we'll go in and take a look at one quick survey. You can do a lot of things here. I mentioned that we have multi-language support. We also have branching, conditional branching capabilities. So as I go through and I add questions, I can do multiple pages. I can add images to this. I'll let your screens catch up a little bit. But I can do all of the standard survey tools, question types, how I want them to be branched. If I come in and choose to edit a particular question, I've got options of how I want them labeled, how many columns I want, if I want to randomize the answers or not, if I want to randomize the questions, how many pages. I can also customize this so it can include your logo, and we've made the survey kiosk a lot easier to use too. So the email messages that go out, the survey kiosk, you can still print these and do manual data entry. But we think some of the most powerful features here are the branching capabilities that enable you to say, take a look at a question where if somebody answers that they don't feel safe walking to school, those people that say they don't feel safe can be branched off to a whole separate set of questions to find out why. Those children that say they do feel safe walking to school just go on to the next question. And probably most importantly is the ability to do these surveys using multiple languages. So you can provide surveys in the native language of the people that you're serving. If you want to do surveys in both English and Spanish, that's supported. So what I'd like to do now the last thing I wanted to show you that I mentioned was our dashboards. So we think that the visualization of data and enabling you to see data in a way that makes the most sense for you is very important. So these dashboards we've set up so that every user can have their own set of dashboards. The dashboards can be controlled by, you can have as many different tabs as you want within your dashboards, and then each tab can have as many different charts and graphs as you want. So I've set up a few already, and then you can see there's a number of different dashboard items that we can include on these, which include attendance dashboards, case management, overall enrollments, program attendance and enrollment. We're also including information for financial dashboards, outcomes. All of those are things that you can customize to put on your system. And you can add as many tabs as you want. You can also go through and control the filtering for these. So I can, if I want to only include active participants, I can go in and modify this to only include active participants. I can change the measures that I want to show on these. If I want average hours per visit versus total hours or the overall attendance count. If I want to do that for some specific demographics, in this case we're doing ethnicity, you can control how you want your data to be displayed. So for those of you who may have some users on your staff that want to say they're focused on attendance, they can create attendance dashboards that look at attendance and slice the data based on a number of different demographics, age, ethnicity, gender. You may have some folks that are interested in looking at outcomes or maybe academic outcomes versus physical outcomes. You can do that. So every user can customize their dashboard to display the data that they want. And we're going to be putting a lot more effort into the dashboard as we move forward. We're going to be adding drill down capabilities. We're linking reports directly to those dashboards so you can get additional information from these. In addition to the support that we're doing within our public API so that it can be integrated with additional applications as well. We're already working with some organizations to tie some of these charts and some of the data from the dashboards into some applications that you use outside of this, such as Salesforce, so that as they're working with some of the data, they can view their participant data and say they're talking to the potential funders. So there's a lot that's going on within TraxSolutions version 8. It's certainly been a long time coming. We've been working this for the last 2 years. We hope that that what you see today whets your appetite for some of the capabilities that we're adding and will continue to add. We're focusing on this year on getting at least some proofs of concept mobile applications, as well as for some of our enterprise applications like Community Server, integrating our predictive analytics capabilities into that, as well as ongoing updates and upgrades to the entire system that you've seen today. So I hope that you're encouraged by this. I hope you like it. I'm going to hand it over to Daniel Adam now, who's going to be able to talk you through what this deployment process is going to look like over the coming months, how he's going to manage that, and we'll look forward to getting any questions that you have via email, and we'll look forward to continuing to work with you as we continue to improve our applications. So I'll bring the application back up, and I'll hand it over to Daniel.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Adam, and I'm the Director of Client Engagement, and I'm based in nFocus's newest office in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm heading up nFocus's effort to raise the overall utilization of the software tools that clients already own to make the most of their investment, which is why I'm so excited about the arrival of Trax8. As you saw, there is a new and improved functionality that should make your work easier and even more meaningful. I also manage the training and support teams in the Phoenix and Chicago offices that will be working with you very closely as we bring you on to Trax8. First off, we understand that Trax8 represents some significant and powerful changes for you, and one of our core goals is to make the transition for you and your colleagues as easy as possible. To that end, we are taking a steady and purposeful approach in using a phased rollout method to ensure we have an effective and efficient process. That said, we have been testing internally for 2 months and will continue to do so. This testing has consisted of multiple iterations of common activities and tasks within Trax8, as well as the testing of data migration process so your data will be ready to go the first day you start using Trax8. Further, we will be working with a small group of early adopters to pilot the entire migration process from Trax7 to Trax8. These are clients we have identified to represent the broad spectrum of Trax users across the country. By starting with these early adopters, we will identify and address any minor remaining issues and fine-tune our migration process so that the vast majority of clients will experience a quicker and more efficient migration. Our intent is to follow a 4-step process, which we will fine-tune as we work with our early adopters. First, we will be establishing a master schedule to manage the migration of all of our clients and their data to Trax8. Again, with our purposeful approach, we will invite certain clients to take part at specific dates. But after a brief initial period, we will be publishing a general schedule at which time you may be able to sign up for what we call a cutover date. And a cutover date is simply the date on which you'll start using Trax8. Secondly, as your cutover date approaches, about 2 or 3 weeks before, you'll be given access to a sandbox. A sandbox is a full-fledged version of Trax8 that will contain your data and be set up as if you were ready to go on Trax8. However, this is only for you to review and verify your data, and very importantly, for you and your colleagues to have an opportunity to familiarize yourself hands-on with Trax8 without worrying about doing anything to all the data you've collected. Along with the sandbox, you'll be provided with a quick start training guide, which for you, our existing clients, will focus more on improvements and differences. We strongly recommend that anyone who works with Trax make time to access and practice on the sandbox. The sandbox, when it comes time for your cutover, will be erased. Third, the week prior to cutover, you should be prepared to have all staff go through the free online training courses, which will be offered on a regular scheduled basis. Again, these will focus on the improvements and differences in Trax8. The schedule for these trainings will be available online, and users will be asked to sign up for sessions. As we migrate clients to Trax8, we will begin offering training for users completely new to TraxSolutions for Trax8, and will cease training on Trax7. Fourth, the day before cutover, you will receive confirmation from training and support on your cutover, and your sandbox will be deleted. Also, your current Trax database will not be accessible. But when you come in the next day, your cutover day, you'll be ready to go live with Trax8. Support, as always, will be available to assist you with any questions or concerns as you start on your way with Trax8. As your cutover date comes closer, we'll provide more detailed information. But we are very excited about the new possibilities with Trax8, and my staff and I are excited to help you explore and understand how Trax8 will help you reach your goals and make a difference in your communities. Now I'll hand it back to Jenny Autumn for a few final words.
Thank you, Don and Daniel, for your presentations. Before we end today's webinar, I just want to take this opportunity to provide a little bit more detail about a few things mentioned earlier, and to make you aware of some great opportunities coming up to learn more about Trax8. In Don's slides at the beginning of the presentation, he mentioned that Search Institute's renowned Developmental Assets Profile, or more commonly known as the DAP, is now available in the Next Generation Survey Tracks module. With this offering, you can bring your data to life by providing a deeper, more comprehensive understanding about what kids need in order to grow into healthy, successful adults. You'll be able to provide the tangible proof you need to validate your organization's success and increase funder support, and you'll get the insight you need to continue to make a positive difference in the lives of those you serve. More about the DAB and survey tracks can be found on search.nfocus.com, so please check it out as you think about your Trax8 migration. Also, this is a good time to mention that we will soon be announcing more information about our annual Communities for Change event. If you haven't been to this conference before, Communities for Change brings together leaders from national nonprofits, foundations, education organizations, and the public sector to talk about some of the most pressing issues affecting youth and families today. Last year, presenters from organizations like the National League of Cities, Attendance Works, and America's Promise spoke about their successes and lessons learned, as well as their future goals and objectives. Please be sure to mark your calendars for this year's Communities for Change conference, which will be held in Omaha, Nebraska on October 24th and 25th. Not only will we be providing updates about the Trax8 launch, but we're lining up some great speakers you won't want to miss. We hope you join us there, and keep an eye out for more details about this event soon. With that, we've concluded today's Trax8 introduction webinar. We hope that over the last hour, you have learned how easy it will be to find information faster than ever before with a modern user interface, customize start pages and create quick links, quickly merge participant and household records, as well as eliminate duplicate entries, and create advanced surveys that give you the insight you need into your member database. Finally, stay in connection with us by liking nFocus on Facebook, following us on Twitter and YouTube, and visiting our Ideas in Focus blog. We'll be sharing more information about Trax8 and other company developments through our social media channels and our website. Thank you for attending today's webinar. We look forward to working with you soon on the Trax8 migration.